The story of Geoversity and the preserve goes back more than 30 years. Started with Nathan Gray in the US, where he was launching the Earth Train campaign, where he traveled across the continent and even on other continents with youth from all over the world, having their opinion stand out towards companies, politicians, related to what is fair for both humans and the planet.
It was an odd and amazing journey with train journeys across continents. We did a train during the war in former Yugoslavia, and train in India, and Japan, and Taiwan, and so forth. We also pulled off the Youth Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro in June of 1992. That was the first of what became the conferences or the summits on the environment that we are having to this day.
Then around 2000, he established himself and his family in a small plot of land in the Mamoni Valley by invitation from grown-up people, the neighbors.
We were invited to come to Panama by Kuna youth leaders in the interest of, hey, if we're going to create a campus in a rural environment, learning environment, would you locate where we're most vulnerable to invasion, where the ranchers are ignoring the boundaries and cutting into our forests, cutting into our river valleys, also illegal logging. I mean, so we were here in effect to grow what is today they call the colchón verde, or the green cushion. And when we came into this valley, the dominant agricultural activity was ranching, and typically of ranching with large landowners that were absentee, didn't care about the local environment, and would push their employees to clear as much land as they could get away with. So we were candidly in a war zone. What we experienced here in the first many years of our work was a really scary situation. And we realized very quickly that if we were going to have a campus, we couldn't work in half measure unless we did at least 10,000 acres and it could protect critical corridors, critical riparian ways. It was going to go up in toast. And so
in the years 2005 and 6, more than a third of the valley, there's around 12,000 acres, was converted into this conservancy, which now is the main campus of Geoversity.
Since Geoversity got to the Mamoni Valley and created the preserve, we've actually transitioned about 20% forest recovery. So a lot of that has been thanks to natural regeneration from cattle pastures and even young secondary forests, as well as through some of our initiatives with the reforestation. So within a short period of time, we've now been able to see cattle pasture turn into young secondary forest, and a lot of people who come and visit us really can't believe that within such a short period, Mother Nature can already start recovering.
This is so cool.
It feels like what people, it feels like an exaggeration of a rainforest.
At Geoversity, our main focus is with education, and then we have these 2 sub-projects that we also work with that are related to science and the arts, as well as with conservation, and sharing our sustainability projects and mindsets with students and those who come and visit us.
We really want to make sure that we all understand that people are part of nature. So this coexistence in the entire valley between all species, including humans, gotta be in balance. And this relationship is also what we try at Geoversity, using Mamoni Valley Preserve as our campus, where we try to promote the formation of leaders that really try to make everyone understand about this unity we have as humans. So we need some leaders to speak out, go out, be active in society as a whole, where they come from, but also particular towards decision makers in policy, and make sure that we treat nature as a part of ourselves.
Now that takes, in our view, a basic shift in worldview, away from the worldview that has dominated human society for millennia, which is that, we're above nature. Our job is to control and use nature, use resources, throw things away as if a way ever existed. And by shifting a worldview where we experience a connectivity, that to harm the living beings around us is to harm our body, is to hurt ourselves. When we experience the beingness that we really need to embrace, that larger beingness of the living, vital, dynamic environments. If you will, what we're committed to with our Mamoni Valley Preserve is to have, as we've been working to create over 22 years, the campus where the future pilots of Spaceship Earth, the talent, the leaders that the planet so desperately needs, they have a place to test their mettle, to learn from one another, learn from nature through immersion, learn from the cultures that are earth-based.
That's Geoversity's mission, to train, to empower the generation of rising leaders and to help them in their ascending leadership path, so that when they get to that spot where they need to take decisions for the cities, for their countries, for their communities, for their business, they are gonna make them keeping in mind that humans and nature are one thing.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Mr. Z. School's in session, baby.
Oh yeah.
School's in session.
That's our island? Wow.
So here in Panama, we have 7 unique indigenous cultures that share the Isthmus of Panama.
You have the campesino, mestizo, or mixed Spaniards culture in the Mamoni Valley. You have the Cunas and Cunayala, of course, and the Embarás here where we sit at the moment. Now, neither the Embará nor the Cuna, if you look hundreds of years back, actually were established where they are now. The Embarás were migrating around in the country, and at one point, actually only around 80 years ago, the first in this migratory process established themselves in this area and then stayed. The Cunas were trying to hide from slavery in Darien, close to Colombia where they were, and established themselves on the islands, felt themselves to have found a safe ground.
Estando nosotros en la montaña, porque éramos cunas de la montaña, no éramos cunas de las islas, cuando llega lo que es ya venía la pelea, ¿no?, de la revolución, pero en el año 1925, el 25 de febrero, es cuando ya dijimos basta. Ya nuestros abuelos comenzaron a pelear para que algunos de los que estaban en tierra firme comenzaron a ir a las islas, comenzaron a esparcirse a diferentes islas, y la isla que más sufrió, que más dolor recibió, fue Narganá, y que actualmente ellos solamente hablan español, tratan de rescatar el idioma que es el cuna de nosotros, y ellos han sido tan fuerte ahí el militar, el gobierno panameño, que les arrancaba el winnie a las mujeres, la argolla, y le ponían pues vestimenta que no es nuestro a las mujeres. Querían los latinos, los militares, que las mujeres le bailaran, que fueran sus mujeres. Mataron a niños, y cuando hubo eso, nuestros dos líderes, Simbral Coleman y Cantule, ellos se levantaron y dijeron, ya basta, vamos a pelear, y aquí se va a derramar sangre. Muchos de nuestros abuelos murieron, y gracias a ellos tenemos tierra. Aquí estamos, podemos decir que gracias a esa pelea, el gobierno panameño nos respeta. Si no hubiéramos peleado, no tendríamos tierra.
Here today we're in Cunayala, where they're sort of the examples of where some of the other territories and cultures are trying to strive for acquiring what they've been able to achieve here in Cunayala, because back in 1925, the Kuna were able to successfully take back their territory and have it become this autonomous territory that they govern. So the other indigenous territories now look at this region to see how is it that they can work towards in having the government understand and respect these particular other territories in a similar way.
Y ahora el gobierno panameño nos apoya tanto en la educación, que tenemos Meduca, que nos ayudan. Hay escuelas aquí ahora. También nos ayudan en cuanto a la salud, el centro de salud. Y también en cuanto a la seguridad, que tenemos ahora los de Senafrón, que ellos están en diferentes comunidades también para pues cuidarnos y resguardarnos en cuanto si hay algo malo que pase dentro de la comunidad, pues ellos también nos cuidan.
So a lot of projects that Geoversity gets involved in are within these indigenous territories. And when Geoversity comes into the communities and starts having these conversations with the communities to understand what it is that they need, we try to provide them with the resources so that they can get things that really represent what it is they want. Because the government here in Panama, typically they come in, they say, here is what we got for you, this is the project that we're going to do with you, do you like it or not? And there's not really much dialogue happening in terms of really understanding what it is that the community actually needs. Here in the region of Cunayala, in the territory, there's been a lot of change just in the last 20 years. You're seeing this really traditional culture being introduced to an influx of Western tourism, and that has brought in a lot of good, but it's also brought in a lot of challenges.
Se ha cambiado mucho, tanto culturalmente, ha cambiado mucho nuestra forma de pensar. Cuando los norteamericanos vienen para acá, nosotros los pueblos cunas sabemos lo que es compartir unidad, que ahí nos ayudamos mutuamente, y en la actualidad eso se ha ido perdiendo. Ejemplo, cuando vamos a construir una casa, la Casa del Congreso o la Casa de la Chicha, también, eso había anteriormente unidad. Se veía que el pueblo, todos pues construían las casas, pero actualmente ya no quieren construir, ya la gente ahora, si tú pagas, pues te va a ayudar a construir, pero no es gratis. Anteriormente lo hacían porque eso era por amor, ¿no? Anteriormente tampoco no se veía muchos veleros, muchos canoas, que ahora porque nos intercambian comida, pues sí se ha visto que la gente les da pereza, no quieren trabajar, prefieren comprar antes que ir a trabajar al campo. Anteriormente se veía también mucho que el abuelo o el padre transmite mensajes o le da consejos al hijo o al nieto para que todavía nuestra cultura siga perdurando, ¿no? Pero ahora los jóvenes actualmente no quieren ir a pescar, no quieren ir al campo, quieren la vida fácil, que el abuelo o el papá pues vaya a trabajar por ellos. Ya no hay esa hermandad, no hay unidad, ya no hay solidaridad, que son las tres palabras en sí, los tres valores que nosotros teníamos, ¿no? Se ha ido y eso más que nada nuestros abuelos, Ibeler y Beorgun, nos han enseñado que debemos trabajar en igualdad, pero ahora ya se está acabando.
In all these territories, campuses, they all suffer impact from global change and even local change. And the Embará and the Cuna is no exception in that sense.
Cuando los turistas llegan, arrancan de los corales, ¿sí? Ellos lo que hacen, para nosotros los corales son rompeolas, ¿sí? Ahora se han visto muchas inundaciones en diferentes islas. En total son 5 que actualmente se están inundando por lo que sería la contaminación, ¿no?
In Cunayala, the first island community, Kartisuktup, already 10 years ago, felt that they were forced to remove the entire community to mainland because of rising sea, less reef protection, and larger waves. So they are moving, yes, and they fight that. They also fight our entire plastic world. They themselves don't know how to deal with plastic as a solid waste material because they've been used to transporting using containers of natural materials that could just be disposed naturally in nature. So they themselves are fighting with the plastic issue. At the same time, all the plastic being passed even from Europe across the Atlantic with the trade winds end up on their islands. So they have a huge solid waste contamination problem to deal with in this community.
A pesar de que el Congreso General diga no botemos basura o que el turista se lleve su basura, la basura no, las cosas, por decir, los objetos no vinieron hasta acá solos, tienes que devolverlo de nuevo, llevártelo. Eso es lo que decimos, ¿no? Por decir, la botella de soda o de cerveza no llegó solo hasta acá, el turista lo trajo. ¿Por qué no te lo llevas de nuevo para atrás? Entonces, ha sido, la verdad, es una lucha constante de los dueños de las islas, porque si dejas la basura aquí, ¿dónde va a ir? Al mar. Sí, directo va a ir al mar, porque aquí no hay como un capital aseo que recoja basura, no hay. Y el Cuna no quiere ir hasta la ciudad a gastar el pasaje, no quiere ir solamente para botar la basura, se queda aquí, ¿sí? A pesar de que siempre haya normas, leyes dentro de acá de la comarca, sí lo hacen, se te va a escapar 1 o 2 personas, siempre pasa eso.
Personally, I've been working with the Embarrat communities in the Chagres and Picani watershed, because here we sit by the Picani River, which is fundamentally the same larger watershed neighboring the Mamani Valley. So we have 3 larger water catchment areas. So all these rivers are born from one single mountain or ridge called Diamayala. And Diamayala means, in the Kuna language, where water is born. So this indigenous territory is called Embarrara Ehuaso, which means the Embarra Heart Territory. 35 years now ago, it was also established as a national park. Now, ever since then, between 10 and 15% of the forest cover has disappeared. That has a local impact on climate, temperature, and they are experiencing less rain. Now, for instance, we are at the very end of May, beginning of June, and the rainy season has really not yet started. There's drought in the area. It looks green here, yes, but in general, the amount of rainfall has decreased dramatically. That means that the Embarra themselves have issues transporting themselves on the rivers. It is warmer. And here, where we are now in the Chagres River, this is really the most important watershed in Panama. It delivers all the potable water for Panama City, actually the entire province. And it also provides about half of the water required for the Panama Canal to function. So if this watershed is not treated well, then humans have a serious problem in terms of water, and we have shortage already.
There you go. One more.
The Bamboo Arc is really a 10-year campaign, the Bamboo Arc 2030 campaign. We are aware we have very little time to adjust our behavior and to prevent a total planetary collapse. So that is the label put onto it. And there's a lot of symbolism in it, because we are building an ark. We're actually building several arcs out of bamboo in the real world. And it's supposed to send a message, the message of our mission as Geoversity about our unity with nature. So as a part of this, we have chosen to work with bamboo, because bamboo is a natural material that is very open to collaboration with humans if we use it well. And we will be building, first of all, vessels that will be located by the mouth of the 3 watersheds I just mentioned. And it will be used in practical terms as a vessel that we will use to enter these territories. So it's a means of transportation, making sure that we have 0 carbon footprint when we move around and conduct our leadership training programs. As Geoversity, the campaign entails some very important elements. We need, and we know that to scale up our operations, we will need to work beyond the Mamani Valley. We collaborate now with the indigenous neighboring territories. You, as the Branson School, you are here visiting one of these campuses, also being part of this experiment expanding where we operate, and get very much closer to indigenous people's knowledge and their relationship with nature. Considering that this organization is funded very much through the leadership programs itself, just to kind of breaks even. We need to establish what we call the Green Endowment, which is a fund that will create more stability in the upscaling of our operations.
One thing that a lot of people assume when they see Geoversity and the impact and how it is we're working, they assume that we're a large not-for-profit organization with a healthy amount of resources, both financial and human, and that's definitely not the case. So we're actually a small team. We wear many of hats, and we really depend on volunteers and donors and these programs to be able to bring in that income. So without this sort of myriad of the way our operations work, this wouldn't be functioning. So for us, being able to have people understand that there's a few of us involved in this and that we would love to get more people involved. And within that mix, for us, being able to educate and share experience to really build on these youth leaders, because we think that they will be able to make that greater impact so that students can go back to their communities and share what it is that they experience here on the ground with Geoversity.
The goal is to create a global network of 1,000 biocultural leaders. A biocultural leader is a leader committed to bringing humans and nature together. We believe that ultimately the reason why everything is so messed up is because we keep thinking that humans and nature are two separate things. We keep having this conversation about coexisting with nature. But for us, that is a mistake, because you do not coexist with the thing that you're part of. You simply just exist and thrive. So biocultural leaders are leaders that from every sector of the economy, from every corner of society, are trying to make impact and make some change happen, but by channeling this vision of reuniting humans and nature together.
And we want to see them active individually in different contexts, but also create a community for those upcoming leaders. We have an ecosystem. These leaders are a fundamental part of this ecosystem of individuals, companies, institutions that all collaborate in this mission of ours. So while we hope to produce 1,000 youth leaders with a fully paid scholarship where they run through these programs of ours, we would like this ecosystem to grow enormously. This has got to be a global movement because we do not have time to wait.
Now that's, you got to take a page from Mother Nature. The whole notion that it's dog eat dog, it's competition that drives evolution, that life runs on competition. Well, sure, there's competition, but the ultimate driver of evolution, the ultimate stimulus for speciation, for the emergence of something greater than the single part, emergence of solution, is cooperation. And if there's a takeaway, it's learn from Mother Nature, evolve or die, cooperate or starve.
I believe this is the most exciting time to be alive in the history of our planet, because the climate crisis is both a threat, but it's also an opportunity to completely redesign everything we are, everything we do, everything that identifies us as a collective, as a society, as a humanity. So everything needs to change. Transport needs to change. Agriculture needs to change. Fashion needs to change. Food needs to change. The way that we work needs to change. So having the opportunity to be the designers, the architect of our future is the sort of energy that should, fill up our heart, our minds to continue pushing, because we're the first generation in the history of the planet that it's given this opportunity to completely reformulate everything that we have created thus far and make it work for everyone. So through climate action, through this reformulation of the world as it is, we have a chance to actually correct those mistakes and make a green future work for everyone and not just a handful or a few. Otherwise, it's gonna be pretty hard to stop what's coming our way.